Hello, and welcome to today's PayScale G Plus Hangout, College Choice, an Economist View, in which we ask our lead economist, Katie Brodaro, all your questions about college. You might feel overwhelmed by all the information available to you right now. How do you choose the right college for your career goals? Can you afford that school? What might happen after you graduate and go look for a job that will pay your student debt? Katie is here to offer her advice on those and many other questions. If you are joining us today and have a question for Katie, leave a comment on the YouTube page and we'll do our best to answer it during this chat. For now, let's get started. Katie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And so to start off, we asked some students at Troy High School in Fullerton, California. Thank you, Savannah, for some questions to get our hangout started. You all set? Great. All right, the first question we have, they would like to know, does college help a person succeed in getting the career he or she wants?
Well, the truth of the matter is that there are still barriers to entry with a lot of different college jobs, where many different types of careers actually require a college education. And if it's the type of career you want to move into, then unfortunately you have to have a college degree even to get noticed oftentimes. Now, there are colleges that help kind of people to understand what these career paths would be, because not always is it true that you need to have a degree. So there are special circumstances. If you're a really standout person, if you have an associate's degree, a lot of times that can be enough. But if you want to go into something like software development, or if you want to go into a lot of marketing positions, a lot of business positions, a college degree is required.
Wonderful, thank you. So for the people who do decide that their career goals require going to college,
one of the ways that they can maximize college as a resource is basically take classes in something that prepare you for both your dream career and a fallback career. So if you can't get your dream career, which is, it is a dream, it's not always possible, at least you have something to fall back on. Some of the smart fallback types of classes are anything analytical, anything, left brain, anything in the STEM areas, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, because those are just highly in demand in today's kind of big data, IT, technology-driven world. So even if you aren't a numbers person per se, or maybe you hate math, just taking the first series of classes and pushing your way through it really gives you some valuable skills for today's marketplace.
thank you so much. That is very helpful. I am not a numbers person, but I wish that when I was in college, I had spent more time in math classes. It would have helped me a lot, just from my own experience.
Yeah, actually, adding on to that, one thing I would say is that there are a lot of careers now that didn't need to be number-based, but are becoming more number-based. So, for example, there's people who are in HR who previously didn't need to know anything about numbers that now need to be Excel savvy. Or there are people in marketing that need to understand data in order to create interesting infographics and have a viable use of data that their company provides. Or, journalists need to understand the data going into their stories so they can really ask the hard-hitting questions. So a lot of careers might not be analytics or numbers focused, but having those skills can give you a wider list of options, since a lot of careers now that weren't previously number specific do like to have those skills.
Thank you for adding to that. That makes a lot of sense. One of the questions that we got a few times was, how can a student graduate with minimum student loans? I think there's a lot of concern, especially in today's economy and in the job market. How can somebody get out of college with as little debt as possible?
Right. So student loan debt has been at the top of the list for a lot of people. Basically, it's reached over $1 trillion, which is just insane. And the one thing that really you need to keep in mind is you need to understand not only the cost that you'll face from going to a specific school, but also what kind of return you can expect on those costs. So even if you don't know what kind of major you're going to major in or what kind of job you want, just do some research and figure out, well, what are the kind of trends for these type of majors? What are the kind of income trends for these kind of majors? Just to inform yourself in your college decision, because it makes no sense whatsoever to go to a $50,000 a year private school if you want to major in social work or theology or art, because oftentimes people in those majors don't earn a lot of money, and it can take you a really, really long time to pay back your student debt.
I'm glad that you brought that up about private school versus public school, because one of the questions we received was how expensive is public school when you compare it to private school? And maybe if you could expand on that and also tell us a little bit why you would want to choose one over the other.
Sure. So the range of costs for public and private school is actually pretty wide. For the most recent academic year, the range was from $19,000 a year for an in-state public school if you're a full-time student, up to $35,400 for a private school. So 19,000 to 35,000 roughly. The other one you should probably throw out there, because some people do make this choice, is to go to a public out-of-state school. So for example, if you live in Washington but go to school, a public school in California, then you're starting to get into the price range that's closer to private school. It's actually 28,000. So, and those numbers might not seem that high to you, but if you think that you're paying that for anywhere for 4 to 6 years, that can really add up to be a lot. You know, you're talking six figures if you're going to a private school, and it can be as far high as 200,000 to 250,000 if it's one of the premier ones that charge $50,000 a year. So when you're trying to make your decision, there's a lot of resources out there from the Department of Education. A lot of colleges themselves actually put the information on their website due to a mandate from the current administration so that people can kind of understand the cost they can expect. One thing to definitely mention is you might expect to graduate in 4 years, but that's not always the case. So when you're calculating your cost, you should probably calculate it for a range and really pay attention to the 4-year graduation rate at a given school. Now, just because you're really driven and do really well in your classes doesn't necessarily mean you graduate in 4 years, because a lot of it ties into whether you can even get the classes needed to graduate. So one big win of a private school over a public school is they tend to have good 4-year graduation rates. It's a lot less common to not be able to finish simply because they're smaller, there's not as much competition for classes, they have smaller student-to-teacher ratios, so you can be more successful in your classes. Whereas public schools, there's a lot of competition for classes, especially for really popular majors like business or computer science or communication. So you might not be able to always get to the classes you need, so you have to fill in time with other credits. And then the thing that will happen is people are filling in time with other credits, and it's just enough almost to either get a double major or a minor. So, well, why not stay the additional year to finish that double major or minor? But if you compare 4 years at a mid-range price private school to 6 years at a public school, then the choices kind of be half of one, 6 dozen of another. Half of one. I know I totally just screwed that up, but you guys know what I mean. So basically, equal. And when you're trying to make your college choice about, Alita mentioned why is one better than the other, or what are some costs and benefits to private versus public school. I had the opportunity that I went to both. My undergraduate was a private school, and my graduate education was from a public school. And one thing I would definitely say that is a big win for a private school, I've already mentioned it, but we'll reiterate, is a small class size, ability to get classes. There's your teachers are really involved in your education. They're there because they like to teach, and so they're thoroughly involved in students and their success. Whereas at the public school, and especially if it's a research university, they're there to do research primarily and then teaching secondarily. So it might be harder to get a professor's attention. You're sitting in lecture halls of 800 plus students, so sometimes it's just harder to absorb information. Oftentimes they're on a quarter system rather than a semester system, so you're going through things really quickly, maybe not covering them as in depth, and it's just a harder environment. It's much more sink or swim in a public school, whereas with a private school, there's definitely someone holding your hand through a lot of it.
That is a really excellent point. I know that when I was in college, and my brother, who is currently in college, fifth-year seniors they were the rule. They were not the exception. And I went to a state school in Texas. Okay, so you pick out your college. You've done that. That's a big thing. Once you're there, how do you pick the right major?
I would say picking the right major is equal parts kind of where your ability lies, what would bring you the most happiness, and what kind of return on investment can you expect? Because when it comes down to it, it's not all about the money. A lot of times you need to take into account what you're good at and what would make you happy as well. And it's totally not worth it to go into something that you're good at and can bring you a lot of money if it's not going to make you happy. Just like it's totally not worth it to go into something that you are good at and happy but might make you no money. You kind of have to find a balance between the three. And it's not to say that, okay, only major in things that'll give you a lot of money because the other two things are important too. But if you're going to major in something that doesn't bring in a lot of money, then you need to make sure you make the right college choice. Like we were saying earlier, going to keep reiterating, don't go to a very expensive school if the major that you're going to major in doesn't bring a high return. For example, if you're going to go into something like social work, theology, education, art, any of those majors, they don't tend to pay very well relative to other majors. So don't pay $50,000 a year to get an education in that. And the other thing I will say is oftentimes public schools, A, have those programs and private schools might not, and B, offer things like co-ops that help you to, get into a school and start teaching to get experience, or, work at a local advocacy group, or work at a local church community. And so public school might give you a little bit more experience and a little more preparation in those roles at times. And so it's worth it if those are the things you want to do, those are things that are going to make you happy, make the right college choice.
Okay, that is very helpful and kind of leads into our next set of questions. These are from people who are maybe in college right now or really, really close to college, nearing graduation, wondering what they will do after they graduate. So one question they would like to know is, what majors are typical employers looking for?
Okay, the answer to that one is it depends. Not the most helpful answer, but in general, STEM majors are very hot. So again, science, technology, engineering, and math. And included in those are things like statistics or actuarial science or computer science. Economics is in there. It's a social science, or sometimes referred to lovingly as the dismal science, but I would put that one in there too. So those are really hot just simply because of the type of a world we live in. We're a technology-driven world. We're a world that's obsessed with big data. We're really interested in analytics, using math to kind of predict things or to figure out what's the best way for a company to succeed. So those kind of majors or courses in those majors are key, but not everyone is a left-brain thinker. Not everyone is a numbers person. So if you're going to be a word person, then the thing you need to remember is that you then need to figure out kind of what are the main career paths you want to go into, what is the kind of place you envision yourself in the next 5 years, and take classes that might not necessarily be in your major, but might kind of make you a more well-rounded person to go into those fields. That being said, I would also say that left-brain people and right-brain people are both needed to make the economy successful. If we were all numbers people or all words people, we would never be successful. So both types of majors are desired. You just have to make sure you understand that for your field or for your given area or for the type of company you want to work for, just have an understanding of the jobs they're looking for and what they expect their workers to have. And luckily for us, we live in the internet age, so there's a lot of great information out there to inform your decisions.
So when somebody has kind of identified the types of employer they're looking for, maybe when a student has honed in on exactly what they want to do, when would you suggest a student who's about to graduate start contacting these employers? How can they reach out to these employers to give them the best shot at getting a job after graduation?
My answer actually would be as soon as possible. Even if you're a freshman or a sophomore in college, it never hurts to contact employers. Look for internship opportunities. Sometimes they lead into jobs, but more importantly, they lead into networking opportunities. Networking opportunities are key in today's world for getting a job. Because otherwise, if you're just, pushing your resume out there onto the online website, it's going into a pool of thousands of other applications, and whether it gets pulled out to be seen or not is kind of a crapshoot. So the best way to get seen is to have a connection, have that person to hand in your resume. And so any sort of preparation, any sort of steps you can take to get there are key. So that's, contact employers for informational interviews. They're a little less scary. They're not as like, hey, can you give me a job? It's more, I just want to learn more about your company, or, contact someone at that company who has a job that you hope to have one day and just say, I'm a college student, I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my life. Can we meet for coffee just so I can ask you how you got where you are? And sometimes those lead to nothing, but at the very least, they give you a networking opportunity. And in today's world where everything is, related to things like LinkedIn or to alumni networks or job postings that are driven by your college, having some sort of step ahead, which is the networking opportunity, will get you in the door more easily. That being said, it's going to be hard work. Like, we know that over 50% of college graduates are either unemployed or underemployed, in the sense they're working at jobs that are either below their educational level or less hours than they would like. So it's a hard world out there. So anything you can do to put you above some of your peers or some of your competition is key.
I think you make a really great point about finding somebody who is currently doing the job that you hope to do someday and talk to them. I personally, that is exactly how I got to where I am, by meeting with people who are doing what I wanted to be doing, and I highly recommend that. Okay, while we're talking about these companies, these employers that people have identified, what types of companies do you think are providing the best training for new hires, and what types of companies are hiring new graduates?
Okay, the answer for both actually is smaller firms or startup firms. They are the kind where the environment is that no one really has a single specific job function. They're expected to be able to have their fingers in many different cookie jars. So they need people to have kind of a wide range of skills. So that means that they're not going to be able to easily hire someone who has a wide range of skills. So they'll hire someone that has skills in something they're looking for, with the idea that they will train them in the skills that they need to be successful in that company. Also, they're the ones that are growing in the recent economy. They don't really have as much red tape for hiring people. They're a little bit more flexible of getting people in and through the door, because they don't have to go through a corporate HR system. And a lot of it also with small companies is they want people to come in, hit the ground running, play an active role in the company's success, which is key for people in Gen Y. They want to have that recognition. They want to feel like they're important. They want to feel as if they are contributing to something that is bigger and better and stronger than they are as a single person. And smaller companies and startup firms really offer that more than anyone else.
And in your opinion, what are most companies looking for in new graduates and new hires?
I would say that some of the things that companies are looking for is, again, come in, hit the ground running, be strongly motivated, have great communication skills. A lot of people put on their resume great communication skills, but whether you actually have it will be very obvious in your interview process. You need to be strong and confident in what you say, believe in what you say, and if you don't know, don't be afraid to ask questions. Someone who comes in with the attitude that they know everything, a lot of times that's a red flag for employers, especially if it's a new graduate. No way a new graduate is going to know everything. They just don't have enough real world experience. So, come in showing that you have enthusiasm to learn, you're excited about opportunities, and you're excited about making a difference and playing a role in the company's success. And a lot of drive. That's the last one I would say. Really, really just show that you're gung-ho, you're ready to go, hit the ground running, gas pedal to the floor.
Fantastic. Okay, so just for the last question around this subject, what are the best industries for recent college grads, and what, in your opinion, are the worst?
So the best industries are the ones that have been seeing profits, in the sense that they've been doing well, revenues have been high, they haven't been facing too many costs, and when they have that, they tend to hire more. So examples of that are oil and gas exploration are really big. IT is really, really big. Science and biotech is another one that's really kind of top of the list. And you might be thinking, well, I'm not a petroleum engineer, I'm not a developer, and I'm not a scientist. Well, they hire a lot of different types of people. They have HR departments, they have marketing departments, they have content writers, they have search engine optimizers. I mean, they have everything. So you can't think that I only need to go into an industry that does what I do. If I want to do advertising, I have to work in an advertising firm. Not always true. A lot of times, especially smaller firms, they hire a plethora of different types of people and need them to, like, that one key person to do those tasks. And so those industries are really strong. They're hiring, and areas that are strong in those industries, like Houston for oil and gas, Seattle and San Francisco for IT, Boston for science and biotech. Just because maybe you want to go into an industry that's not one of those, if it's an area strong in those industries, that means the area is generally doing well, because the money just propagates through the local economy. One industry does well, people get a lot of money, they spend a lot of money, and that money goes into someone else's pocket, and so on and so forth. The industries that aren't doing quite as well, construction is still suffering a little bit, although doing much better in recent quarters than it was just a couple of years ago. Same for manufacturing, actually. Manufacturing was really hit in the Great Recession, but There's been some really strong reports coming out from the manufacturing industry. In fact, the first one in 4 months that had positive growth. So things are looking up in manufacturing. Real estate is a hard one. That's a hard one to break into, and the housing market really hasn't come back in the way that people were hoping it would. So it's getting a little stronger, but I would say stay away from that one if you can, because that's a big risk reward industry. It could be great for you, but it could be very risky. One thing I did forget to mention for the top industry is healthcare. That's another really, really big one. I mean, with the baby boomers getting older and sicker, they need more and more healthcare, and with the big healthcare push from the administration, there's just kind of a lot of money cycling to that area, and it's basically people will always be sick, and it's never something you can outsource. Service jobs in general, you can't outsource completely. So it's something that will always have job opportunities, and healthcare is just getting stronger and stronger.
That is very helpful. Thank you so much. One more question just about while you're in college, what you're making your decisions. Some people have wondered if a master's degree is worth it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I would say, again, it depends. For certain fields, a master's degree can help you a lot. For other fields, it could have no effect and then hurt you in the sense that you don't really see a boost in pay, and then you paid this money to get a master's degree. So for some of the more quantitative fields, they definitely help a lot because you learn some new data analysis packages, programming packages. You do some more research and get really kind of deep and heavy into data more so than you do in your undergrad education, and get a certain set of skills that set you above and kind of set you on the path to become more like a lead analyst or analytics manager, kind of in that path. For other majors, especially ones that lead to specific careers, like engineering or social work, it's kind of like you can be very successful with a bachelor's degree. You might get a little boost from a master's degree, but not enough to justify the cost you would have to pay. One thing I would say that for the people who are seniors right now, if you're not entirely sure what's going to happen in the job market, apply to grad school if you can, because then at least you might have a fallback option. And some grad schools, will pay for your degree if you teach at the college as a TA or as a teaching assistant or a instructor. So it might not give you a big boost in pay, but it didn't really cost you anything extra to get it, and it's just something that gives you a little bit more time for the economy to heal or you to figure out what you want to do.
That is really helpful. Thank you so much. I just want to talk briefly about how parents can help students as they make all these decisions. And then I would like to talk just a little bit about you and how you chose your career that you were in. So first, let's talk about parents and students and how they can work together. Do you have any advice for parents and students, how they can work together on choosing a college, choosing a major, and how parents can really help their kids the best?
One of the best things a parent can do for a child is be upfront with them about what they will contribute to their education. If they know that they can contribute a lot or can only contribute a little, it does no good to hide that information from your child. They will not think any less of you if you can't pay for their education, nor will they disown you as a parent. It's better for them, for you to be upfront so that they make the right choice, because if they're swimming in debt 5 years from now, they'll have more regrets or more hatred towards the situation than if you were just upfront from the beginning. The other thing I would say is parents a lot of times try to very much control their kids, say, oh, I majored in this, so I want you to major in it as well. But you need to remember that your kids are not the same as you. They might have skills or dreams that aren't the same as yours. And basically, you just need to be comfortable with, they know what they want to do. And even if they don't know what they want to do, college is a really good time to figure out what you want to do. And if you're concerned about your child and the path that they want to take, voice those concerns, but don't forbid them from doing it, because the quickest way to ensure someone will do something you don't want them to is to forbid them to do it.
That is very true. Thank you for answering that. I appreciate that. Finally, we have about 4 minutes left before we're going to wrap up. So I'm just really curious, how and why did you choose your career as an economist?
Sure. So kind of riffing off what I was just saying, my dad majored in accounting and decided that I should major in accounting too. And I was majoring in accounting and decided that it was not for me. And I was taking economics classes as well and thought, wow, this is super interesting. So I, much to the anger of my dad, changed my major and went into economics and started doing independent directed research and joined the honors program. So I got to do even more research and decided, wow, research is interesting. Data is interesting. Numbers that aren't just in T accounts, interesting. So I decided to run with it. And I liked working. I worked during the summer to TA classes at my college and decided, wow, teaching is awesome. So I decided to go to grad school with the dream of being a professor. Went to grad school, loved my grad program, loved my classes, loved teaching, but then basically life happened, the economy happened, and I needed to get a job to support my family and decided to come to PayScale, and with the promise that I got to work with a really cool data set and get involved in a company that was really just starting to be successful and get their foot in their voice out there. So I came into PayScale when it was still a little bit new and have just grown with the company and love it more than anything. Have no regrets about not going into the professor side, and I'm just really excited to be able to talk about data all the time.
That's fantastic. It sounds like maybe the big takeaway is find your passion, work hard, and be flexible and see where life takes you. Would you agree?
I 100% agree. Like I said, you cannot do something just for the money, and you cannot do something just because you're good at it. You need to find something that you're good at, that makes you happy, and can afford you the lifestyle that you want.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. So it looks like that's all the time we have today for our G Plus Hangout with PayScale. Thank you so much, Katie, for answering all of these questions.
Thank you.
The video of today's Hangout will be available on YouTube, so please feel free to share the link with your friends, and feel free to ask more questions in the comments. Perhaps you will see them in a future blog post on payscale.com. Thanks so much. Have a great day.